Welcome to episode number 206 of the Beyond Social Media Show, the podcast for all of you marketing, advertising, public relations, and communications professionals. We are recording live on YouTube on October 19, 2017. Plenty to talk about this week, including hashtag MeToo, .takeover, Hip Hop Obama, playing Jane, locking down Google, The Rock's empire, I'm feeling Google, Buff Bezos, craptastic New Zealand, voice ads gone bad, synchronized binging, deceptive ads, watch out LinkedIn, and much, much more. We always started off with best story of the week, and BL, you have that honor. What was the best story of the week?
Well, this was a tough one, really. This was the week of the Me Too movement, and the movement began with a tweet by Alyssa Milano saying, if you've been sexually harassed or assaulted, write Me Too as a reply to this tweet. And what happened then was that she got 67,000 replies, 24,594 retweets, and 51,697 likes, which brought this conversation very much into the open. And that was just on Twitter. It trended as well on Facebook. And then, as the New York Post writer Alexis Benvenisti noted, reminder that if you're a woman who didn't post Me Too, it doesn't mean she wasn't sexually assaulted or harassed. Survivors don't owe you their story. And that was retweeted 58,000 times and got 155,000 likes, including mine. And a lot was written and posted and tweeted this week about Harvey Weinstein and the prevalence of sexual assault, not only in the movie industry, but in all industries, including the public relations industry, I might add. And I don't know a woman who doesn't have a story to tell, including me, a story about how we didn't tell anyone for fear of harming our careers or being accused of doing something to bring it on, or worst of all, being not believed. So some people are just saying that Me Too won't change anything, it's just people sounding off. But Sophie Gilbert noted in The Atlantic that it succeeded in showing the magnitude of the problem. It takes a lot to tell these stories publicly, and there have been some really notable ones told this week, and I'll include some in the show notes. You know, the question is anything going to change? Is Bill Cosby going to jail? Is Harvey Weinstein going to be in jail? Are the statutes of limitation going to be extended? Maybe, if women and men keep speaking up and speaking out, maybe we'll force change. It's a big maybe, but it's a start. And as Sophie Gilbert says, the power of Me Too is that it takes something women had long been quiet about and transforms it into a movement. Unlike many kinds of social media activism, it isn't a call to a march or, a campaign or protests or speeches and events. It's simply an attempt to bring out the prevalence of sexual harassment and assault into the public eye. And it's a long time coming, I can tell you that.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's salutary. I think it's Me Too begs the question. I mean, it's I've got a story to tell. And telling those stories, I mean, having one is the incredible courage of being of saying that publicly, because it's something that takes a lot of courage. But also, I mean, this generation of the Harvey Weinsteins of the world, I don't know that much changes there, but the prevalence of people telling their stories online has, I'm sure, an effect on younger generations.
Well, it went offline too, I mean, I spoke to my friends about it, and and we talked about, like, why didn't you tell? And, did you ever tell? None of us ever did. None of us ever told.
And for all of the reasons and legitimate reasons that, that have been stated, amongst them, worrying about their career.
Exactly. And I mean, you couldn't take that chance.
Yeah. Now that has, I mean, one of the positive effects. No, it hasn't changed. It hasn't changed, but it changed. It starts somewhere, right? And the coming out of the closet, coming out of the shadows, the fact that this is pretty freaking widespread, that's where it starts. That's where the change starts. Is awareness.
Well, and I think I hope that it will make men think twice about the possibility that they might be outed publicly. I hope that that's the impact that it has. Time will tell. Either that or the next, Trump tweet will take it over. I mean, it all remains. Oops, I wasn't supposed to say that word. It all remains to be seen. It's
Well, it's a
definitely
cultural
something
change.
that should be spoken about.
Yes, absolutely. It's a cultural change, and that's why I'm kind of skeptical about the Harvey Weinstein generation changing. I honestly, I mean, I obviously I'm a man, so I didn't was not subject to that. But I have never seen that type of behavior in the workforces I've been in. I haven't been in
It's not
PR
done
for
publicly.
my entire career,
It's
so
not done
there's
publicly.
yeah, sure, but I mean the locker talk that I don't that's repulsive to me, so maybe I'm just not around those type of people. I'm not denying that it happens. I'm sure I know that it happens, but I think it gets better with each successive generation when there's enough media and there's enough conversation and it's out in the open, and people are talking about, yes, it does happen, and these are
That's
the
what we have to hope for.
consequences, and
That's
this
the
is what
reason.
happens. Yeah. So
That's the reason. So, okay, a little bit happier news, perhaps.
yes, it was a good story in that it's for the reasons you cited. But this is a happier and lighter story. Adweek's Tim Nudd wrote about a dot takeover. This is just absolutely clever as hell. An Irish telecom called Air, I believe is how you pronounce it, EIR. Replaced all the black dots in the October 6th issue of Daily Mail magazine with colored dots. It was every dot in the magazine, every period, every dot in a colon and a semicolon, every dot above a letter I or a J. These dots, BL, do you know what these dots are called?
No.
I think they're called tittles. I was wondering. I thought you're a font expert. You might know what the pronunciation is.
I know what they're called.
So anyway, you learn something new every
I'd have
week.
to ask my brother.
There you go. It was a magazine-wide stunt. So every dot in the entire magazine was replaced with a color.
Why?
It was explained in a full-page ad at the back of the magazine. The point of all the colored dots was to suggest that Air, this telecom company, can help you eliminate black spots in your home or office where your mobile signal is weak. The headline for the ad said "No more black spots," and then the ad elaborates by saying, "At Air, we don't like black spots, which is why we've gotten rid of them in this magazine. And we can get rid of them in your home and office too with Wi-Fi calling exclusively from Air. Just enable Wi-Fi calling on your mobile phone and you'll be automatically connected to any Wi-Fi network so you can still make mobile calls whenever you have a weak signal." Just a brilliant idea.
That's hilarious, because you'd have
something
to go look.
everybody knows.
Find out why that was happening.
You gotta find out. Absolutely.
Wow, I love that. So the other thing that I loved that happened this week was both of the Obamas have picked unconventional artists to do their portraits for the presidential portraiture. So Obama picked the genius hip hop portrait artist Kehinde Wiley to paint his portrait, and he's known for these huge, luscious, larger-than-life portraits that overlay Black street culture with European classical motifs. So he's a wild choice for the presidential portrait, and he's sure to have a novel spin on the formal portraiture. He painted LL Cool J in the style of a John Singer Sargent painting. He did Ice-T as Emperor Napoleon, and and he's done young African-American men in stained glass tableaus like saints in a church. So Michelle Obama chose a Baltimore-based painter named Amy Sherrill to paint her portrait, also not a conventional kind of a portraitist. And both Wiley and Sherrill will be the first Black artists to create official presidential portraits for the Smithsonian. And they're surely going to have a lot of selfies in front of them when they're unveiled at the National Portrait Gallery in D.C. next year.
Well, that's fantastic. Well, speaking of unconventional contrasts, this is a great story. I mentioned it in last week's episode. I want to elaborate on it this week. This is from a Guardian article by Emily Guerra, and there is a video game called Ever Jane that is a virtual role-playing game developed by Judy Tyrer, who is formerly of Linden Labs, which created the online world Second Life. The game is set in Great Britain during the Regency era, and the Regency era was around 1811 to 1820, and was it preceded the Victorian era. Most people are aware of the Victorian era, but British society was regulated by its class system and unwritten codes of etiquette during the Regency era, as immortalized in the works of Jane Austen, who wrote such classics as Pride and Prejudice, Sense and Sensibility, Persuasion. I took a Jane Austen class in college, so I'm familiar with all of her works, her major works anyway. But her novels are essentially rule books by which to navigate the Regency era society. Likewise, video games are essentially a set of rules that the player uses to navigate the game. So Ever Jane is an online role-playing game like Dungeons and Dragons, but from the Kickstarter pitch, it reads, "Gossip is our weapon of choice. Instead of raids, we will have grand balls. Instead of dungeons, we will have dinner parties." So Ever Jane is currently a free playable prototype. It's in early beta, so there's the user interface is kind of wonky, and they've got to work out some kinks and stuff. But it has strict social rules to navigate its maze of etiquette. Your character keeps a ladies' magazine at hand. Drinks with characters are scheduled via request sent by letter, of course. And the importance of social conduct is reflected in the fact that you have 3 buttons, each offering a different kind of curtsy or bow. So Austen opens Pride and Prejudice, which are what are essentially the rules for the game, by saying, "It is a truth universally acknowledged that a single man in possession of a good fortune must be in want of a wife. However, little known the feelings of views of such a man may be on his first entering a neighborhood. This truth is so well fixed in the minds of the surrounding families that he is considered the rightful property of some one or another of their daughters." Those are the rules of the game for Regency era Britain. So the story is about competition, but Austen's narratives dwells on matters of the heart, rather than your typical role-playing game. But they're also about positioning, strategy, working the system. So the game has many of the classic features of conventional online fantasy adventures, but they've been Jane Austenified. World of Warcraft has guilds, or teams of players that work together, but Ever Jane has families whose statuses can be influenced by actions of individual players. Characters progress not just through experience, but by orchestrating social engagements and avoiding scandal through dialogue. Quests take the form of social gestures that raise your character's stats, whereas World of Warcraft, strength, dexterity, and wisdom are the stats. They're replaced by status, kindness, and duty, happiness, and reputation. So much of marketing is storytelling. And this is a great story in of itself, but I've been for a long proponent of marketers need to know video games. They need to know how to tell stories through the video game experience, because you can't just think these days in terms of just written copy or even video presentation, but in terms of making experience out of your marketing. And so there's a lot of videos on this game online. Most of them are done by traditional video game guys, so they're pretty negative. But it's a great story, I think.
It sounds a lot like The Social Life on the Upper East Side of Manhattan.
Right. Well, there you go.
It sounds like we have a lot of the same rules up here. So, phishing and identity theft and all of the other horrible things that happen when you're online are not going away. So Google has a new answer. It's an extreme, they call it the advanced lockdown. And I just have to give you some background. When I first got my first office computer, I got a software called Metafile, which may still be around. And it was for us to be able to do our media lists. And so they would actually come into your office and install the software and then put this thing on the back of your computer that was said to be a lock that would keep you from stealing their software. And I think the program, a physical lock, and I think it cost about $1,500. And you had to go to some backwoods town in Pennsylvania for like 3 days and stay in a motel at your own expense to learn how to use the program, which was so much more complicated than anything we had to do in my agency. But, that was a joke because no lock is going to keep you from stealing software that you bought on discs. And I then spent, because I couldn't understand anything about it, I literally spent thousands of dollars on consultants to come and teach me and my staff how to use the damn program. So now when I see Google saying that to use their extreme lockdown, you have to buy a dongle that goes into your computer and have a special USB key that goes into your phone, it seems like we're going backwards. But the advanced lockdown protects against hacks in Gmail, Google Drive, YouTube, your phone, and any Google property. So maybe the hardware is worthwhile, but the ultra secure mode is really intended for truly high risk users, but that's all of us now, including those who face, threat of state-sponsored, highly resourced cyber espionage, politicians and officials and high net worth people and activists, dissidents, journalists, all of us. So logging in from a desktop requires this special key, and you have to access your mobile device with the dongle, and you're exiled from coming in unless if you lose these things. It's not like you have codes you carry in your wallet or anything. And it only works at the moment in Google properties in Chrome, but their malware scanners are going to use a much more intensive process to quarantine and analyze incoming documents. So it'll take a long time for you to see any attachments. And if you forget your password or you lose your login hardware, you'll have to jump through many more hoops than you ever have before to regain access. So any intruders who would try to circumvent all of that Google stuff will have a much harder time, but you can bet they're trying to figure it out right now. So users are going to have to buy their own universal second factor, or UTF keys. One USB key for desktop costs about $20, and the Bluetooth LE enabled key for mobile is more like $25. And Google says it supports keys made by the FIDO Alliance, a group that manages identity and authentication protocols, like Equifax. So it's not vulnerable to phishing sites that spoof Google's login page and then use a stolen code or password to hijack your account. It performs its own authentication step with Google's site to check that it's legitimate, and only then supplies a key that you can use with no need to type a code. It's very complicated. If you lose them, you're in trouble. You have to go through this very stringent recovery process. So are normal users going to do it? I don't know. I'm not.
Yeah, well, I guess I'm glad they're thinking about how they can make things more secure, but yeah, that's just
seems a little convoluted,
complicated. One thing that's not complicated is The Rock.
Definitely not.
Everybody knows The Rock is not complicated. So there's a great profile of Dwayne Johnson, The Rock, on an Ad Age article by Ann Christian Diaz, in his company called $7 Production, which he founded in 2012 with Danny Garcia, his business partner, manager, and ex-wife. The name $7 Production comes from the $7 he had in his pocket in 1995 on the day he was cut by the Calgary Stampeders of the Canadian Football League. The company, though, has since produced 32 feature films to date. Over time, he's added to his company $7 Productions. He's added $7 Digital Studio, which is a digital content company, and now he's adding $7 Creative, an ad agency. And that got me reading that. I saw the headline, The Rock starts an ad agency, and that's what got me reading the article. It explains his experience. So he's got experience with brand partnership. You think about how The Rock came up first as an athlete playing professional football, then as a wrestler, and then he started getting into TV and doing films. He's got experience with brand partnerships. So he's got a Project Rock, which is co-branded under Under Armour lifestyle line that he developed. He has worked with Ford as the brand's ambassador of service. He had a recent Apple TV campaign where he was parodied for his polymath and in an ad that depicted him with the help of Siri of touching up the Sistine Chapel, presenting his fashion line in Tokyo, creating culinary masterpiece with a celebrity chef, all while filming his latest action flick. So he knows advertising as a spokesperson. Danny Garcia owns a talent management and holding company, and The Rock has 166 million followers across his social media accounts: Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube. So think about that. His background in sports, entertainment, digital content, and social marketing. It seems to me that those are all the ingredients that you need. Content especially for a model for the future of advertising. So whereas when I read the headline, I was kind of laughing it off as a joke. As I read through the article and thinking about all of his experience, it seems like a pretty good model for the future of advertising, because the current model isn't working that well.
That's for sure. Wasn't that him in the Volvo truck ad where he was doing a split in between two trucks?
I remember that ad.
I think that was him. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
So I came across something. I've been spending a lot of time in search in the past week because I'm working on a project where I'm looking for something very specific. So I guess I was taking a break, and I always look at, like, underneath the Google search, it says I'm feeling lucky. I thought, what does that mean? So I clicked on that, and there's all these other options, and when you click on them, it says you're currently using an experimental version of Google search. And so there's one that says I'm feeling doodly, I'm feeling playful, artistic, wonderful, and more. So you click on I'm feeling artistic, and you go to a page from Google Arts and Culture, which is one of Google's finest projects. And so in this one that I went to, it was the art of George Seurat from the Art Institute of Chicago collection. And since there had just been a George Seurat exhibit in New York, I found that very interesting. I'm feeling wonderful. That day took me to a page about ancient Kyoto and the Nishihanganji Temple. Feeling stellar. This was cool. Only works in Chrome, but it takes you to Google Earth, and it told me, unfortunately, my computer doesn't support WebGL because I'm on a Mac, but it said I should try another device. I click on I'm feeling curious, and you go to a page where you see a random fact, and then you can ask questions and see information about other facts, like why did giraffes sleep standing up? Who's Batman's butler? What's Dracula's real name? Who were the first people to use money? It was fun. And then I'm feeling playful. That day took me to a Google Doodle page, like the one about the 78th birthday of Robert Moog, who invented the Moog synthesizer. And then I'm feeling hungry takes you to a search for local restaurants in your area. And I'm feeling generous takes you to a page with links to nonprofits with a variety of causes. So, it turned out to be a longer break than I had in mind. But I had a lot of fun, and I learned a lot.
Well, the I'm feeling lucky version originally was designed. Basically, if you hit I'm feeling lucky, it would take you the first link in the search.
That's what I thought.
That's what. Yeah. Well, that's pretty cool. This is not luck. This next story is deliberate and well thought out PR strategy. I think it might be one of the savviest PR moves of the year. This is from a Verge article by Ben Popper about Jeff Bezos and his announcement of Amazon's latest wind farm, which was accompanied by an irresistible visual. It was a video of Bezos perched atop of a wind turbine and christening the thing with the smash of a champagne bottle. The drone pulls away to reveal the entire wind farm behind him. And his tweet, Bezos' tweet reads, "Fun day christening Amazon's latest wind farm, hashtag renewable energy." So that image is absolutely irresistible, and people are going, it's an image that demands coverage, right? Of what an announcement that would otherwise be just routine and not very newsworthy, right? Okay, so Bezos announces another wind farm. He's done it before. What's the big deal, right? By including that awesome image, people are going to cover it. So the story in The Verge includes a comparison tweet from @disruption, 2 S's, that shows side-by-side photos of Bezos in 1998 and Bezos in 2017. The 1998 photo shows a smiling, nerdy, balding Bezos wearing a sweater, and the 2017 photo shows an expressionless, bald, ripped Bezos in black polo and sunglasses. The tweet reads, "I sell books" versus "I sell whatever the fuck I want."
I saw that one of him in the t-shirt and the muscles, and it was like, wow, that's Jeff Bezos. That's incredible. Yeah, he used to be a balding nerd. Look at that. Look what money will do. So there was this brings us to worse news, Dave.
It does, yep.
Okay, well, this one's funny. There's been a very big backlash against some towns in New Zealand, and this is from a BuzzFeed story by Brad Esposito, and the backlash is against something called Shit Towns of New Zealand, and this is a Facebook page dedicated to chronicling the crummy towns, and it's a satire page, but it's attracting both praise and criticism, and even the mayor of one of the so-called shit towns told reporters people who write about that sort of rubbish should be shot. Now, that's kind of harsh. But speaking on the condition of anonymity, because the creators of the page are anonymous, one of the admins, who said he was a 30-year-old New Zealand man, said the page was started as a joke amongst friends. He said it soon became apparent that thousands of other people found it funny too, because they have 30,000 plus followers. And they, were doing this, pointing out why these various towns were awful for years, 2 years. And then all of a sudden, some politicians who live in the town, or a politician who lived in one of the towns being described as shit, decided to take notice. And now they get death threats. So the mayor of South Waikato, said they should be shot. And then she later told the New Zealand News Hub that she knew she shouldn't have said the creator should be shot, but she was, quote, trying to match the joking nature of the page. So that caused the guys to write, "Among our detractors, a few seem unable to express their anger in an appropriate way, resulting in violent threats." He said anybody who had an issue with the page could always unfollow it or block it. And if you're unable to ignore things you don't like, then maybe you shouldn't be using social media, which is a very valid point. So that caused them then to post frequently asked questions. So the first question is, why do you hate insert shithole here? So this might come as a bit of surprise to some people who aren't acquainted with the finer points of satire, but these posts don't reflect our actual generally held feelings about your town. We do not hate the towns we review. Our intent is to use offensive humor to highlight the eccentricities of towns scattered around. If we shit on your town, it's only because we care. So they said, the next question is, why don't you reveal your identity? And they say, unfortunately, some humorless troglodytes who don't get the joke seem prone to making violent threats. While we're convinced that 99% of these keyword warriors are full of shit, we're not prepared to run the risk that one of these gormless goons will actually act out some of the uber violence they propose. And so he says, I think that the negative reactions are due to people not getting our brand of humor, combined with some sort of parochial and jingoistic culture that exists in small town New Zealand. And I mean, it really has gotten out of hand, and it's really very funny. And, it kind of applies to a lot of things that happen online, where something's going on and then all of a sudden it just blows up because one person says something about it that rings a bell with other people. And, it actually is funny when you take a look at it. It's hilarious.
Reminds me of the Visit Cleveland video, viral video a couple of years back, where a parody of a tourism video for Cleveland. Nobody wants to visit Cleveland, so they made fun of their own town in a parody tourism video. It's pretty good.
I just looked at something like that today, but it wasn't Cleveland. That's funny. Do you remember, like, a long time ago, you know, when the groundhog comes out, and there was a town in Pennsylvania where their tourism office had this person in a groundhog suit doing these ridiculous videos, and that went viral because it was so ridiculous. And they did it for years. I'll have to look for those.
Are you sure you're just thinking of the movie?
No. This was an actual guy whose job it was to go around in this hallway in a suit like a groundhog. And it had music. You don't remember that, huh?
No. So this I have been wanting to talk about for a while. It's actually a post from last month. Mitch Joel posted on Medium. He's, of course, the marketer, author, and host of one of my favorite podcasts, 6 Pixels of Separation, a great interview format marketing podcast. So he posted on Medium last month an open letter to the advertising industry about voice activation. As we know, voice input, we talked about a lot, is becoming ever more prevalent. We've got Siri, Amazon Echo, Google Home, Microsoft Cortana, even Xbox has voice activation. By 2020, it's expected smart speaker sales are expected to reach 15.1 million units annually. So it will soon become the dominant way we interact with technology. And obviously then it's a new advertising frontier. He makes the point that voice isn't just about how consumers will navigate and engage with technology, that it's more as more consumers use voice, the less screen time there will be, and that signals a fundamental shift in dealing with attention, interest, desire, action, all the things that advertisers try and tap into. So we need to think differently, fundamentally differently than we have been thinking in terms of advertising or marketing messages, and think fundamentally about sound. Consumer consumer expectation will be with voice assistants. Mostly it's when I use my home, it's asking questions a lot. So I just expect to spit that the right answer. There's no screen, there's no option for me to do a call to action pretty much. We've already heard podcasters deliberately activating their audience's smart speakers. South Park was trolling smart speakers owners a while ago. There's the Burger King Google Home hijacking example that we talked about in previous episodes. All those are interruptive. I think brands need to be thinking seriously about what voice is going to be and experimenting with it. What kind of advertising will work? And thinking about what kind of audio content they should be producing right now that's answering their questions that customers have, that they can optimize for audio. So it was a good call out to the advertising industry and a cautionary note to not destroy this medium right out of the box, but it's probably going to happen anyway. So
I read that article too. Mitch is an old friend of mine from the early days of blogging, and he's really a brilliant guy.
He's great. Yeah.
Yeah. So, in their continued goal of taking over the entire world, Facebook is now taking aim at LinkedIn because they're starting to post resumes. This is from an Adweek Social Pro story and a Next Web story, and it was confirmed that Facebook is building and testing work histories feature to help people find and businesses hire for jobs on Facebook. And Dimitar Serafimov of the Next Web reported that the resume feature allows users to share their work experience with friends, including more details than your network currently has, and the information will not be displayed publicly. Users can add details of professional and educational experiences, just like you do on LinkedIn. And a person that was contacted by the Next Web said, at Facebook, we're always building and testing new products and services. We're currently testing a work histories feature. You know, we don't need that. We just don't need that. I'm sorry. Facebook does not have to be everything to everybody. It really does not. I'm getting kind of tired of this. I'm also really tired of, on the first day of the month, Facebook showing me my memories from the month before. What? Do you think I forgot? I mean, you know, like, I'm sorry, but I get more tired of Facebook all the time. And this one's really over the top.
It's a smart move by them. They already have pretty much all the data on you. Why not add
It's
resumes?
just another way to sell ads.
Yeah. It's a more effective way
let
for
them figure out their algorithm first.
Way for employers to find talent than currently exists. LinkedIn would be playing catch up. Yeah, it's a smart move.
Let them figure out their advertising algorithm before they start imitating LinkedIn. You know, they have some issues, and
they do have some issues. But if you want to compare advertising algorithms across all the social channels, theirs is by far and away the best. They have issues.
This is a really serious issue at the moment. We really should discuss this at some point, because I really believe that scapegoating is taking place with, you know, both Facebook, Google, and Twitter, and the move toward regulation is very frightening. So they better get their acts together.
I agree with that. Yep.
Yeah.
So there's not much regulation in advertising and there's no advertising regulation in social channels. There is some in television channels, and maybe this is an instance where they should apply some more regulation, because it's really pissing me off.
Yeah, it is. And, you know, they really just have to stand up and do something about it.
I'm not talking about social media. I'm talking about television advertising.
Television. Let's go into television.
Yes. So, the NFL. This is from an iSpot TV story, but it was I see the ad all the time, so that's where I first came across it. The NFL Shop is running an ad that opens with 3 New York Jets fans. They're all wearing green Jets uniforms. They're watching the game, and the doorbell rings. And the 10-year-old fan gets up, runs to the door, grabs the package from the delivery guy, runs upstairs to his bedroom to open the box from NFL Shop. He pulls out an Odell Beckham jersey out of the box and then hides it under his bed. He's a secret New York Giants fan. So kind of adorable, right? So why is it the worst? Because the ad is, every time the ad airs, I instinctively get up to answer the door because of the damn doorbell they have at the beginning of the ad, which is deliberate to get my attention, and it's manipulative. It's tricking me into watching their ad, so the ad just pisses me off rather than the actual adorable story it includes.
They shouldn't do that. There's one where the phone rings and it has my ring, and that does the same to me. Like, what? Yeah. So that brings us to shiny objects, yes?
Yes, it does. What do you got?
I have one that's hilarious. You know how sometimes couples like to watch things together, binge on a series together, and sometimes you just can't wait till the other person is there, so you kind of look at the next episode without them? Well, there's a way to stop that from happening. It comes from Cornetto Ice Cream, who is a brand with a very funny sense of humor. And what they have are commitment rings, and they're these special rings that connect to streaming apps, and they use something called near-field communications to block access to TV shows that you both watch unless your partner's there. So this puts an end to sneaking around with services like Netflix and then feigning fidelity. So you can only watch series on platforms when both rings are touching, so your partner can't pretend to be surprised by the episode that they already saw. And there's a video that explains it. It's really very funny. I won't tell Pam.
Thank you. So my cool thing is from a friend of the show, Robin Flack, who mentioned it on our Facebook page. Thank you, Robin. It's a company, or I think a company called Funky 3D Faces. It's an Etsy shop, and they offer to create your very own personalized Lego figure with your actual face on it. So what you do is it's a 3D printed Lego figurine with your face on it. You take a clear front image of your face and a photo of a clear side image of your face, and send it to them. And your head is 3D printed in a sandstone material with a 5mm diameter hole in the neck, which fits into any Lego minifigure. The only catch is that the head is disembodied, so you're just buying the head. You have to buy the actual Lego body separately. Luckily, here in Minnesota, we have a massive Lego store at the Mall of America, so that's pretty easy. But you can buy them at Amazon if you're not in Minnesota. And your Lego head will cost you $35. But I can't wait to use this. I'm going to use it as gifts. I'm going to
oh, they're
do it
great.
as
What a great gift.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know, one time when I had my PR firm, we wanted to get this account. And so we made these little cutout heads of ours, and we made these little bagel people, and we sent them to the client, and we got the account.
Yeah. So that's the new business pitch.
Yeah. That's so funny. They're so adorable. Yeah. People were complaining that doesn't look like me. Like, what do you want? It's a 3D printed head. Right. So I'm going to be your exact likeness. But, you know, what a great idea.
Yeah.
So
thanks, Robin. Yes. Daily numbers. So this is Instagram influence, brands working with Instagram influencers. So influencer marketing is all the rage these days. Instagram is a major platform for people to do Instagram influencer marketing. L2 did this research, and they say that 70% of brands use influencers to boost reach and enhance content. But they've broken it down by industries. So 91%, the top influencer marketers, 91% of luxury marketers are using Instagram influencers. Not a surprise there. 84% are in the activewear industry. 83% are in the beauty. 82% are in hospitality. 82% in retail, and then on the low end, home care, 16%. I can't even imagine what
really?
who the influencers in home care. 38% in personal care, but it's interesting. I think, yeah, there we go.
Influencers are where it's at. Yeah, right. I can't imagine what influence have to do with home care, but you never know. You know, for the people who are using home help aids. So that brings us to the end of episode 206. Of the Beyond Social Media show, which we thank you for watching. And you will find our show notes with links to all the stories we talked about, and a video, the replay of the show on beyondsocialmediashow.com/206, where we hope you'll leave us a review and tell us what you thought. I am BL Ochman. I am at What's Next on Twitter. My blog is whatsnextblog.com. I am What's Next blog on YouTube, and you'll find out what you need to know about me professionally at blochman.com. David Erickson is at DErickson on Twitter. He blogs at eStrategyBlog.com and creativepr.com/blog, both of which are terrifically informative, and I highly recommend you subscribe to both of them. He's eStrategy on YouTube. The show, BeyondSocialMediaShow.com, is our website. We're on YouTube. We're on Twitter as BS Media Show, and we're on iTunes. And we hope that you will subscribe to the podcast on iTunes so you don't miss an episode, and also that you'll leave us a review. That would be really, really great. And we're on Stitcher, we're on iHeartRadio, we're on Google Play, and we will be back next week. And we thank you for watching tonight.
Thanks for watching.